Okay, so the first thing we want to do before we start modeling is we want to save this file. So all you have to do that is press Control S on your keyboard and save. It automatically takes you to the correct directory because the project should be set. And so I'm going to create that file. I'm going to call this the turtle model. I like to use camel case. What camel case is, if you don't know already, is basically the first word in the sequence of words is always lowercase, and then each word after that begins uppercase. And so in this case, turtle is lowercase, but then I run the two words together by putting model right after it without any space, but I capitalize the M on model. Okay, that's all camel case is. It's really handy because Maya does not like spaces. Okay, I'll say that a bunch of times. And somebody's going to use spaces anyway, and then their file will corrupt and you will lose a lot of work. So don't put spaces when you're naming anything whatsoever in Maya. Okay? Hopefully that was enough emphasis. The other thing that you want to make sure that you're doing when you save a Maya file is go to this files of type and change it to Maya ASCII. The only other option is Maya binary. Now, Maya binary, it writes a file that's full of ones and zeros, machine code. Those corrupt all the time. I don't know why, but Maya has a hard time writing them out to the hard disk correctly. You do not want that to happen to you. So, use Maya ASCII. It writes the English language to a file, and it is interpreted into machine code every time the file needs to be read. Anyway, in other words, there's a lot more information there, and it's harder for Maya to corrupt it. So I'm using the student version. You guys may be also. You just can press continue every time you see that, or press enter on your keyboard, and it'll go away. Okay, now when I'm modeling, most of the time I don't need my attribute editor open, so I'm just going to close that completely. I do like to have my channel box open. You can get to the channel box a couple ways. It's usually here on this right side, and you can click on channel box to show it. Or you can click on the icon for the channel box up here at the top, and it's this one that has, well, really there's not very many icons, but it's this one. The one that looks sort of like a menu. Okay. Now, to begin modeling, what we'll do is I'll start with a cube. This type of modeling is called box modeling. It seems very counterintuitive in the beginning. I will admit that in advance. But I promise you that it will work out much easier in the end. So just bear with me, and don't go run online and try to find some better way to do it, because most likely it will just cause you heartache. Okay, so it's hard for me to see that, so I pressed 5 on my keyboard to bring up the shaded mode, and then I'm going to turn on X-ray so I can see through the mesh. And I want to work the best I can from my orthographic views. Now, on this particular character, the turtle, I'm going to create, and on most characters, whether it be a car or a human or a turtle, you want to start on the main piece of that character. So if it was a car, I'd probably start on the body of the car. And that seems pretty global, kind of really simple. But if it's a turtle, I would start on the shell. And if it was a human, I would start by modeling the hips area. And that's just my personal preference. You're welcome to do whatever you like. So from this view, I'm going to go to my scale tool with my simple cube created. Now my cube was created because without me having to do any extra clicking, because I have this interactive creation off, not checked. So if you turn that off and you create a cube, it'll just pop a cube into your scene. So I'm going to delete that second one I created and just use the first one. If I select that cube, you can see in the channel box that its name is pCube1, and it has a shape associated with it called pCube Shape 1. I want to go ahead and rename this. I'm going to call it Turtle _ Geo, short for geometry. And then press enter, and you'll see that it renames the shape also, the Turtle _ Geo shape. Okay? But I also have this inputs section in the channel box, and the only input that it has right now is called the polycube1. Well, I can add more information to this cube through this polycube1 input. Mainly, I'm going to add a subdivision in every direction. So I'll change this from 1 to 2. And so to do that, all I do is select the attribute names and the middle mouse click. You'll see my cursor change to a left-right arrow, and then drag just a minute amount. And then I change that attribute. The other way to do that is I could just select all 3 attributes and enter a value numerically with the keyboard. Okay? I'm going to show you multiple ways to do everything. Now, that's all I really need to do in there. So I'm going to go back to my front view with my new geometry. I got added more possibilities for detail. Now here's one of my biggest tips, and it's very simple. But anytime you add more vertices to your mesh, so anytime you add vertices or a face or anything like edges, everything's a vertice. A face is described by a number of vertices. An edge is described by 2 vertices. So maybe we should spend a little time on that. So if I go to component mode by selecting this model and pressing F8 on my keyboard, you can see that right now it's in vertex mode, but if I go to edge mode by right clicking and dragging up to edge, then I can select edges. This edge is when it's selected, it turns this kind of brown peach color. And if I move it, essentially it's moving 2 vertices. I could get the exact same behavior by going to vertex mode and selecting the 2 associated vertices. That's why I say an edge is only vertices. Okay, this mentality will help you model more quickly. Now, I could select 4 vertices, and I had to click 4 times, and then I could manipulate this face. Well, and any neighboring faces to those vertices. Okay, now that's kind of the slow way to do it. What if I want to manipulate geometry, a lot of it, then I can just go to face mode and select a face, and now I only had to click once, and I'm manipulating 4 vertices at one time. Okay, so here's the comparison. If I'm working in vertices, then let's say I'm doing one thing at a time. But if I'm working with faces, I'm doing 4 things at a time, which means I'm working 4 times as fast. Okay, and you do want to be quick. There will be a time in your modeling where you do need to go through and move a single vertex at a time, but it's not in the beginning. Not in the beginning of your modeling.